Welcome back to After Lunch, typically the sleeping session. I'll try and make that slightly more interesting. So I'm CTO at Metapack. Many of you are wondering, what do we do? Including this man, who's going to talk to you, who sits on the same floor of the same building as me, I've just discovered. You probably think we're a call center when you look at us. So who are we? We are a tech company. We're a hardcore engineering company. We sit between 500 e-commerce, roughly, retailers, and about 500 carriers. The number's always changing. It could be 400 and something, it could be 600 and something. But what we do is we provide, if you're checking out on a big e-commerce retailer, we tell you when you could get your package, so you can choose how you might get it. We then inject a label into the warehouse of the shipper that we will dynamically allocate. And then we give tracking information. So our business will process something like peak volume, 63,000 transactions a second, 6,000 tracking events a second. And we're in the business of very high performance. The people that use us have lots of volume, moving very quickly, and we're in the business of doing that consistently for them. So we have an average response time of around 168-ish milliseconds. And that's what's needed to do what we do. So New Relic, to us, it was interesting, I was talking to the New Relic guys earlier. They asked me, what's the New Relic project been about? And I was like, it's like our desks or our electricity. It's fundamental to everything we do. I look at it as much as I look at Slack and everything else. So that's who we are. That's where we live. What I'm going to talk to you about today, I've got a really grand title, because I thought it would be really good. The Great Operational Gap is actually something that I believe exists across not only people that provide technical services to other companies, but also sometimes within companies where they don't have the right things set up. And it's a very simple problem, but it's not solved particularly well. So I'm going to try and highlight that in a vaguely interesting way. We'll see how it goes. So first of all, I'm going to set the scene, which is there's been a lot happen in the world of technology. I think everybody knows and sees this and understands this. And it's happened very, very quickly. It is definitely getting quicker. The evolution of business models has changed at an incredible pace. So offline went to online, the great internet revolution. Suddenly, omnichannel was superbed by mobile first into your channel. I want exactly what I want, exactly where I want it. And then that's now been equally paralleled and also overtaken by platforms. The Ubers of the world. I'll just give you what you want, precisely, frictionless and easy as you want it. That's reduced friction. So these days, the expectation of friction is almost zero, which is shown in a bunch of the things that the guys showed earlier with the programmable piece with New Relic 1. That's our expectation. I want to do it right now, immediately. And there's increased insight with data is a fuel that accelerates it. And data's fundamental to everything. Everybody in this room uses New Relic, so understands that data makes things happen, gives you insight, makes you make better decisions. Equally, tech interconnections are growing amazingly. So, from isolated to slow, to now API of everything. And then it's about being data responsive, because APIs are great when they work and they're fast enough and they're insightful enough and there isn't a breaking change. But now people are demanding, yeah, but I want it to be everything to be data responsive. I want the precise context exactly as I want it. Again, that's leading to a desire for less and less friction, much more insight, much more understanding of what's happening now. Tell me what's happening immediately and let me do it. That's exactly what people are asking for. That then comes when we start getting a bit closer to home, certainly for me, as a technologist, you start looking at what does that mean for technology and the way that you bring it together. Well, actually, there was scripting and orchestration, then autonomics, and then cognitive ops. We've already seen today New Relic talk about AI and the use of it. And that's only going to get more and better and deeper. So the amount of change is accelerating. The complexity of the change and the way it sits together is accelerating. The way in which you can knit together technology is definitely accelerating. And it's reducing friction and increasing insight. There's a bit of a pattern here. Hopefully you've spotted it. And actually, the days of complex decision-making, of I'm going to and ah over what to buy, are gone. Pretty much. There's a million of these with lots of logos in, of lots of companies. Someone has won every category. So it's just knitting, right? And it's quick knitting and it's efficient knitting. If you don't like it, you just dump it and get another one. So the days of slow change are gone. It's very fast. And operations are getting much more tuned to that. So a total availability, outage expectations are very low these days. People expect things to be fixed quickly. With that, it changes. There's a whole bunch of service expectations. We expect ops to be informed and sophisticated. Nobody in this room is going to go to their whoever it is, whether that's a business person who's doing the Angry Bear Act or it's a technologist saying, surely we know this. I'm quite good at that. And saying, I don't know. That's not acceptable anymore. Or, oh, it could be. Let me give you a theory. That doesn't work anymore, and no one's buying it. And availability, there's so many businesses, because of the acceleration of business change and the acceleration in business models, the amount of time they can suffer problems and the availability of money. Banks are really good at giving people money these days if they think there's an opportunity. Means that the tolerance of those issues is even less. And it's going to get less and less and less. And you're constantly doing this ridiculous dance, which everybody gets good at and hates, which is, cost, availability, security versus performance, friction, and innovation. Everyone wants to be innovative, but you want to be friction-free innovative and all those things. But you can't have all those people because we can't afford them because we didn't make as much money. So it gets harder and harder and harder. The game gets more difficult. And then this lot turn up and make it impossible because they just constantly raise the bar. They have limitless talent and limitless resources. Every company there has as much money as they can possibly conceive of, in tens, hundreds, if not billions of dollars, just to get exactly what they want. So there's always this piece of the game constantly changing. Until, guess what? This happens. Something horrible happens. And it just happens out of the blue. And you go, hang on. We all know the dance. Ideally, it's all beautifully orchestrated through ops, your AI ops and PagerDuty and all those things. And then there's a moment when someone says, it's not us. And then you have the moment of, yes. And then like, oh, God, no, it's my problem, though. So you go to your supplier and say, hey, or you figure out, how do we know what's wrong here? And your supplier shows you this, or this, or this, or, So you go, I've got detailed velocity information about what's happened here. I can understand it. And then you give me this, or indeed this. Sorry, New Relic, but, these things happen to all of us. Which actually, when you break it down, actually means this. So you end up with a very difficult set of conversations to have that are almost impossible. Particularly, we're a SaaS company. It's very hard sometimes because if we're relying on someone and they get it wrong, it's very hard to, well, our supplier got it wrong. They're like, I don't care. I'm paying you to get it right. You should know. Equally, my customers, particularly the people who've got massive warehouses, twice the size of this building or 10 times the size of this building and multiple of them all over the planet with queues of trucks and millions of parcels and automated things, they're not really interested in me telling them, well, these guys got it wrong and I don't really know what's wrong because it's not acceptable. And the thing that makes it even more exasperating is this, which is you get this ridiculous situation where everyone's going to give you all these channels, but they're only telling you the same information. I was trying to think through how do you make that, how do you visualize that, and how do you help people understand it? So someone brighter than me, a chap called Neil McGowan that works for New Relic, I was chatting to him and he said, actually, isn't it like being in one of these? And you're like, this is kind of how it is, right? You're in the cockpit, you know everything that's going on, information. But when something goes wrong with your supplier, this happens. And you've got this kind of thing which is like, if it's green, you're okay. You might die if it turns orange. You're definitely going to die if it turns red, but it might turn orange or green or red. And that's it. That's all you're ever going to know. So you end up with this thing that I rather grandly called the great operational gap. So I've got tons of information and fidelity. I know exactly what's going on. The person on the other side, which could be me or it could be a supplier, has the same. And there's this gap where we all hide behind traffic lights, which is very dangerous when you go back to acceleration in business models, reliance on technology. Everyone, you know, the wisest man in the world is a man called Dr. Hindsight. He turns up after every event and says, why haven't we got 2 of these, or 3 of these, or indeed in some businesses 4 of these? And the realities are economics, practicality, interruptibility, and all those things. But I see this repeatedly, and I think how does this feel? It feels like when people are designing their businesses or thinking about how they do it, particularly SaaS businesses, I'm in a SaaS business, I understand it, is this happens. There's all this, so Ken and his team talked beautifully this morning about depth and product and how it all fits together. And then someone on a Friday afternoon says, hey, should we do a status page? In fact, statuspage.io seems to do it really easily. We've done it. And then it feels like an afterthought, but it's really important. And what we see, and I see, and I think why this is a problem, is we see that minimal information is very, very dangerous because I do not know what's going to happen next. And the channels by which I get the information are normally too slow. So classic thing, there may or may not be a large e-shop stroke web hosting or web services company that may or may not tell you things after they're fixed, would appear to me. And it's very dangerous because you're back into I don't know, which is like, you know, it's like we've got a Dark Ages answer to quite a sophisticated problem. It definitely is too slow. Any people or any process getting in the way hurts. Trust definitely degrades. I've seen it. I've done it with my team. The word they comes in. From like our mates to they. It happens. And that brand damage is very hard to change. The amount of times I've seen teams trying to change a technology because they just don't trust them. And they can't tell you specifically why, they just don't, because they don't get the information and they're not sure. And so we said, great, we're not in the business of solving original problems. We like labels and tracking and stuff like that. That's what gets us very excited. So surely this is a solved problem. So we went to the industry luminaries. You know, these are great people to knit together. They all work beautifully. And said, hey, have you solved this? And they went, not really. But we've got a status page, you know. And we said, well, we don't think that's good enough. So we decided to solve it. And we started to think about how do you solve this and what are the options? Because it's powerful and important if you can do it well. And it's quite dangerous, right? There's a bit of risk here, which is like, I'm going to show you more. But they know anyway, right? Particularly in our business where there's very high operational gearing. They know almost instantly when something goes wrong. See? So what we did is we looked at the options, and I'm not a product guy, even though a little bit of me wants to be. These are the classic things that I think you would always be thinking about. So we want it to be available to everyone, frictionless and restriction-free. You can just look at the information. We want it to be immediate. We want it to be contextual. It has to be valuable and useful. It has to be easy to understand, enough data to be useful, and not too much to lead to the wrong conclusions. Everybody knows about the dangers of that. The IT expert that we've all met who will go, this is what happens because my friend who works in a bank told me this in the pub. The amount of websites I've been told you can build for 20K. You can build a full e-commerce website for 20K. Like, great, your mate's in the wrong business. It's amazing. So we tried to capitalize, what do we need to do that? How do we solve this problem? So we came up with this. It is not very glamorous. It is not beautiful. But what it is specific. So this is an example from a live example. It's not live, but it's a real example from a customer. This is exactly what, if I'm the operator of a bunch of warehouses shipping millions of parcels a day, I want to see. Because I can make a decision. Not the tech guy, not the contract guy, the operator. I can see, I know what this means. I know that because the bloke that told me what he wanted on there is the bloke that looks at it. And for me, that's important. It enabled us to really put in the hands of the operator exactly what they wanted. That is another example. Hopefully you're seeing they're all different, because each business, whilst they do the same thing, have a different culture, a different mindset, and different people. It means that what we did is we moved from this, the traffic light, to something very specific. And it's had an amazing effect. And it sounds simple, right? So I was saying it's a really simple problem to solve. It's meant that we've got the time to understand, which is that what is wrong problem, for an operator is now 0. They can know it's us. We're happy with that. We're confident in what we do, but we're also respectful of the fact that we sit in the heart of someone's business, and it's very, very dangerous if we get it wrong. It's also, we've built trust, so we're able to have really great, deep, engaged conversations with the operators and with the businesses, and it's changed the conversations. Some of the conversations have gone from transactional to partnership, because they're like, oh, you seem to take a bit of risk and respect me, and you're showing me this stuff. It's giving the information to decision makers, which means that everyone who's in the middleman gets out of the way. We've removed friction in the process. And we've made the post-incident process really, really easy, because everybody knows what happened. You haven't got this, well, I heard it was 15 minutes. Wasn't it an hour? Because classic Chinese whispers is something happened for 4 minutes, turns into, was it 10 minutes? Turns into ages in 3 conversations. We just killed that. And what it's meant for our business is quite powerful. Trust has gone up. NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. How do people feel about your business, measured -100 to +100? It's gone from -27, bad, to +30. 50's world-class, 70's exceptional. We're going to keep going. Ecosystem focus means we're starting to really dial up. Because we've got this confidence, we're constantly dialing up everything that we're monitoring and alerting on, so that things that we would have ignored, we're now going, to, because we're able to show and react to them quickly. And people are calling us less, which is amazing, because we've got more interesting things to do. So then I tried to characterize it and thought I'd copy John Lewis, using good, better, best. It's good to give more detail than a red light, which is pretty good. It's better to make it contextual. But really, I think anyone who's trying to give people information, they should give you almost exactly the same as you see. What's the risk? Because it's happening anyway. You have to contextualize it, and it has to be frictionless, and they have to be able to make decisions from it. But if you do that, I believe it closes that gap, which is very, very powerful, particularly if you're serving multiple customers, whether they're internal or external. So that, hopefully, is useful or insightful. That's what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to go away and hand you back. Thank you.